comme on doit Nicolas Winding Refn, s'il vous plaît. Et je voudrais aussi qu'on commence... alors, je ferai la traduction, donc ne vous inquiétez pas. I will lose the translation. Et je voudrais aussi qu'on commence avec un peu de musique. Donc, je ne sais pas si on peut envoyer un très court extrait de ce qu'on a préparé. A little bit of music to begin with. Nicolas. En espérant que ça va marcher. Sinon, je ne chanterai pas, je vous préviens. Sinon, je vais être obligé de vous dire I'm going to be obliged to tell you what it's all about, but I'd rather you to... Je préférerais autant qu'ils découvrent ce que c'est pour voir si ça éveille des souvenirs. Some memories.
Very silent.
We could speak about the silence. Yes, no. J'ai l'impression d'être dans un vieux 20h où il faut se tourner vers la technique pour savoir... Ça devrait arriver. Tout ça pour ça en plus. Nicolas, do you like? Thank you. Merci. C'est bon. C'est bon. Do you like, Nicolas?
If I like?
Yes.
I like. Well, I love, you know, I grew up in the 80s and I love very strong rock 80s ballads, you know. And R.S. Speedwagon certainly made one of the greatest kind of 80s operatic icons.
Il a grandi dans les années 80 et il est très fan du rock de ballade. Et R.E.O. Speedwagon, qu'on était en train d'écouter là, est un groupe qui justement représente ça à merveille, quoi. Le rock ballade, le ballade rock des années 80. Est-ce que vous savez pourquoi j'ai mis cette chanson-là? Did you know why I choose this song?
Yes, and I'm sure you're going to tell everyone else why now.
I'm sorry, yes. Mais évidemment, tout le monde voudrait savoir. Mais why?
Well, I guess the song has a special meaning. It's, I don't know, so do you all understand English? Does anyone? Okay. Wow. So, all right.
Je traduirai quand même, hein. Pour ceux qui sont les moins courageux, je traduirai quand même. I translate.
Then I'll try to explain it. I was in LA trying to make a movie with Harrison Ford, and you know, I didn't know where my career or my life was heading very much. I had done, you know, Bronson and Valhalla Rising, and it had led me to this opportunity to direct a film called The Dying of the Light that Paul Schrader, which is one of the greatest cinema writers, had written, and it was going to star Harrison Ford. But the project really wasn't going in the right direction. One of the things was Harrison Ford had to die in the movie, and he didn't want to die, which was a big problem for the movie. So I was pretty depressed, and trying, because I guess I needed a job. You know, I didn't really know what else to do at that time. And I would fly to LA between Copenhagen at like 1 or 2 weeks at a time to basically work on the script with Harrison Ford, who I really like a lot. He's an incredible person. And at one time, I'd gotten very sick on the plane. I'd gotten the flu, so I was really ill, and I was lying in, I was just in a terrible state. But I had to spend 4 or 5 days in LA trying to save this film. It wasn't going very well. And so what happened was I got a call if I wanted to have dinner with Ryan Gosling, who I had never met. And I was like, yeah, sure, it's a free dinner, why not? And because Hollywood is very much about meaning. You meet other people and then hopefully something happens, and all these agents and marriages and come out of the bushes and want their 10% afterwards. But so it's all about meaning. So anyway, so this dinner was set, and I was in a terrible stage. I couldn't even get out of the door. But Harrison Ford had gotten me these anti-flu drugs that they have in the States. But apparently pharmaceuticals in the US is like doing heroin in Europe. So I was high as a kite walking out that door. I was like Superfly. So I'm a half an hour late for the dinner, and it's quite embarrassing because he's been sitting there for half an hour, and he's very, he's extremely professional and very polite. But because of my fever, I can't move my body, so I end up sitting away from him. I can't, like, if he's sitting there, I'm sitting like this because I can't move. And so it's not a very interesting dinner / date, because I won't look at him, and we talk a little bit, but it doesn't really lead to very much. And fairly quickly into this dinner, I'm like, can you please drive me home? and I think he was like, well, okay. A bit like, this is the worst blind date gone wrong, and the girl just wants to go home, and I'm just going to drive her home and go hang out with some other people. So we walk outside, we get into the car, and I was staying in a hotel in Santa Monica, and we were somewhere in Hollywood. So we drive along the freeway, and I'm high as a kite, he's driving, it's just silent. And to break that uncomfortable silence, that we had even earlier today, where people are just waiting, Ryan turns on the radio, and it happens to be soft rock. And that's one of my fetishes is this ballad rock. So I Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore, or Speedwagon, comes on, and it's a great tune, man. I'm digging it. But my hearing has gone down a lot because I'm so stoned. So I turned the music very, very loud, obnoxiously loud, and then I start getting into it, and I start singing to the song, which is very annoying when people do that. I can't stand it when people do that, but I'm doing it. And I sometimes kind of build myself in some kind of frenzy because, I was in LA. What was I doing here? We just had our second child, my wife and I. Harrison Ford didn't want to die. It was just all fucked, So I started crying. And so tears would be rolling down my cheeks. And at the same time, I'll be screaming, I can't fight this feeling anymore. And I think Ryan was just like, get this guy out of my car. But I get this idea, kind of comes to me because I'm from the future, and I can suddenly see a movie. And I turned to Ryan for the first time, and he's, you know, like you are, he's driving the car, and I literally turned to him, and he's, you know, he looks all handsome and cool and all that thing. And I scream in his face because the music is so loud. I scream, I got it. You and I are going to make a movie about a man who drives around at night listening to pop music because that is his emotional relief. That's why he cries. And Ryan, you know, takes this, one of those cool beats that he does, and he says, I'm in. And that's how Drive got made.
Alors, je ne vais pas refaire l'intégralité de l'histoire, mais disons que en fait, Nicolas était à LA pour faire un film avec Harrison Ford, d'après un script de Paul Schrader, The Dying of the Light, is that it? Dying of the Light, dans lequel visiblement Harrison Ford devait mourir, mais Harrison Ford ne voulait pas mourir. Et un soir, il reçoit un coup de fil de notre ami, ça y est, j'ai oublié son nom, c'est horrible, Ryan Gosling, merci, c'est la jalousie sans doute, de Ryan Gosling qui j'arrive pas à dire son nom, qui lui dit j'aimerais te rencontrer. He wanted to meet with you just to speak about movies or to bring you, yeah, simplement pour le rencontrer, un date. Et professionnel évidemment. Et ce qui s'est passé, c'est que il se trouve que Nicolas était en plein jet lag et tombé malade. Et le soir de ce rendez-vous, il prend beaucoup. Harrison Ford lui donne beaucoup de médicaments et il va à ce rendez-vous et c'est désastreux. Il est complètement stone, il est shooté au médoc et donc il dit très vite à Ryan Gosling, est-ce que tu pourrais me ramener chez moi? Donc vraiment le rendez-vous le plus catastrophique de sa carrière, j'imagine. Et sur le chemin, il met la musique et il y a cette chanson de R.E.O. Speedwagon. Et sans doute à cause de It was the meds that make you cry and everything. Donc toute la situation l'a rendu hyper sensible et il s'est mis à pleurer. Il a mis la chanson à fond dans la voiture avec Ryan Gosling qui conduisait, puisque Nicolas ne sait pas conduire. You don't know to drive?
No, I don't have a driver's license.
Donc il ne sait pas conduire.
I failed 8 times.
Donc voilà, il a raté 8 fois son permis de conduire, ce qui pour le réalisateur de Drive, bon, plutôt sympathique. Et donc il met à fond cette musique-là et il se met à pleurer. Et, j'imagine transi d'émotion en écoutant la qualité de ce rock FM. Mais pas seulement. Je pense qu'il y avait beaucoup de choses comme ça. Et d'un seul coup, il regarde Ryan Gosling qui est à ma place dans la voiture et je suis Ryan Gosling. Thank you for a brief moment of my life. I was Ryan Gosling. Thanks to you. Et donc il le regarde et il dit ok, je sais, on va faire l'histoire d'un mec qui conduit une voiture et qui écoute du rock FM et qui se connecte à ses émotions en écoutant de la musique des années 80. Et c'est comme ça, visiblement, qu'est né Drive. It's more complicated, though, Drive, the story, the process of Drive, because you were in a development hell with The Dying of the Light, but Drive was also a kind of development hell as well. No? Il sortait lui-même d'un ce qu'on appelle un enfer de développement, puisque le script de Dying of Light n'arrivait pas à se faire avec Harrison Ford. Mais Drive, c'est pas juste Nicolas Winding Refn qui regarde Ryan Gosling et qui dit on va faire cette histoire-là. C'est à la base un livre, un roman noir de James Ellis, mais qui était dans les tuyaux, qui était en production par les studios, par Universal, I think. It was Universal.
What happened was that Universal had had read a review of a book called Drive, and it sounded really cool to them because it was about a driver. So they bought the book, and then they read the book, and they realized it was an existentialistic book from a stuntman's point of view of what it's like being in Hollywood. So of course that was never going to get it made. They tried to get it made for 8 years with different movie stars attached to it, but it never got off the ground. So in a way, I was in a situation where I just was able, because Ryan kind of said, I will only make Nick's film, to take this project that otherwise was sitting on a shelf and do my own version of it. And, it was one of those great scenarios where the power of the Hollywood star, like Steve McQueen going to London to get Peter Yates to come and do Bullet, or Lee Marvin getting John Boorman to come and do Point Break, or Blank, sorry. Point Break is a good film as well. So it was one of those things where the circumstance allowed me to basically adapt a book that was very much different from what the studio had wanted to do and essentially couldn't do. And also when it got to finance the movie, Hollywood turned the film down. We couldn't get it financed. So it was only because we could, of Manuel Sheep, who put up a lot of money for the French rights, that allowed us to sell a few other territories in Cannes. And then we had two very rich people put a little bit of money, and that we were able to put the film together, like an independent film, but shooting it in Los Angeles.
Donc en fait, effectivement, c'était un projet qui tournait. James Salis avait écrit ce roman Drive que la Universal avait trouvé, avait acheté les droits, et ça faisait quelques années que plusieurs stars, plusieurs grands noms étaient attachés. Je crois Hugh Jackman, I think, was attached. Je crois même que en fait, dans la tête de la Universal, ils voulaient. C'était avant Fast and Furious, et enfin, ou c'était au moment de Fast and Furious, et je crois qu'il y avait cette idée de faire un peu un truc dans le même genre. Et Ryan Gosling s'est retrouvé avec ce projet, et il a, lui, dit je veux faire le film avec Nicolas Winding Refn. C'est lui qui a imposé le nom de Nicolas Winding Refn, donc ça n'est pas Nicolas qui a été chercher Ryan Gosling, mais c'est le contraire. Et Nicolas dit que c'est ce cas, finalement, c'était assez commun dans les années 70 que des acteurs, des stars en fait, qui avaient tout pouvoir à Hollywood, choisissent un réalisateur pour un projet spécifique. C'était effectivement Steve McQueen qui avait choisi Peter Yates pour aller faire Bullet, ou Lee Marvin qui est allé chercher John Boorman pour faire Le Point de non-retour. Et ou effectivement Jack Nicholson qui demandait, qui a spécifié, qui voulait que ce soit, qui a insisté auprès de Robert Downey pour que ce soit Polanski qui fasse Chinatown. Et donc il y a effectivement cette balance là qui a permis à Nicolas, that gave you the final cut, qui a permis face au studio justement d'avoir le final cut. Nicolas rajoutait aussi que c'était un film qui a un petit budget, qui a réussi à se faire aussi grâce aux Français, grâce à Menel Chiche, qui est là-haut, qui était distributeur et qui l'est toujours d'ailleurs, et qui a acheté les droits pour la France, ce qui a débloqué en fait beaucoup d'argent et qui a entraîné plusieurs pays pour le financement. Donc ça, c'est l'histoire. Can you speak about the visual style of the movie? We were speaking about Michael Mann before, and I was saying that a lot of people made the parallel between Michael Mann and the way he shoots LA and your own vision of LA, and I don't think that the two are that similar. Beaucoup de gens font le rapprochement entre le style de Mann, Michael Mann, sur sa manière de capter LA. On a beaucoup parlé de Sif, notamment. Il y a des plans, effectivement, qui sont frappants, des scènes de diner. Enfin. Mais moi, je trouve personnellement, je trouve que ça n'est pas tout à fait la même chose. Can you explain the vision that you wanted to create for LA, and if you see parallel or stuff that at the contrary, that divide you regarding Michael Mann's work?
Well, I love Michael Mann, and I mean, there's really nothing else to say. But regarding Drive, it was like I decided to make it like a fairy tale, that LA was this magical landscape. And I've been reading a lot of Grimm's fairy tales for my children. So I was very much in that whole world. And so the idea was to make this kind of alien landscape, but within Los Angeles, and taking everything that's unique about LA and enhance it, heighten the reality around it. And then, I don't storyboard. I don't really plan a whole lot, except if you have to do action, you have to do a lot of pre-planning. But otherwise, I basically just, because I shoot in chronologically order, so I come in every morning with the notion of, I wonder what I would like to see today. And then I kind of, as instinctually as I possibly can, use the canvas inside myself to decide what we should do today,
Donc, en fait, lui cherchait, alors il adore Michael Mann, mais effectivement, c'est pas tout à fait la même chose. Et lui cherchait surtout à une réalité augmentée, heighten the reality. Et c'est ça qu'il recherchait à travers son travail visuel et le travail du chef opérateur. Et surtout parce que pour lui, Drive est un conte de fées. You were reading fairy tales to your children? Il lisait les contes des frères Grimm à ses enfants à l'époque, et c'est ça qu'il cherchait. So that would mean that Ryan Gosling is the knight in shining armor, and that
Carey Mulligan is the maiden, and Albert Brooks was the dragon. You can kind of see the symmetry of how the characters were defined.
Donc Albert Brooks, qui est le mafieux de l'histoire, serait le dragon. Carey Mulligan serait la damsel in distress, enfin l'héroïne. Et donc effectivement, Ryan Gosling serait le shining, le chevalier en armure. And what would be the Once Upon a Time? The phone call at the beginning, or the Once Upon a Time? If it's a fairy tale, you got to get a Once Upon a Time. Would that be the?
Well, I think there's a once upon a time in that, the movie already starts in an artificial world. It starts in the room of a man on the telephone, setting up a certain set of rules that will essentially form the film.
Mm-hmm.
But because I shoot in chronologically order, I became very interested in the story between Carey Mulligan and Ryan Gosling, and in a way saw that much more as the core of the film, because it reminded me of a film that I grew up with called 16 Candles by John Hughes, which made a huge impression on me, and a film I still very much love. And it was about the innocence of love, the purity of love. And so I started getting less interested in the quote-unquote the action part of the story, and more into about their love story.
While you were filming.
Yeah. So that's how I came up with this idea of the kiss and the head smash, because that's, in terms of a fairy tale, that's when the film will now transform into something else. And it really became about a man mutating into something else. He's, the idea that he was a superhero all along, he just didn't know it. So, that's the kind of things I saw myself in, and also what would a man do to protect purity of love? And obviously it's very horrifying, but there's also pleasure in it, and that's what makes it, in a way, frighteningly erotic.
Alors, je lui demandais au début, comme dans tout conte de fées, normalement, ça commence par Il était une fois, où était son Il était une fois, et ce serait effectivement le plan du début, le plan séquence du début, où on voit Ryan Gosling face à Los Angeles, face à la ville, en train de répondre au téléphone et d'imposer les règles en fait, de son métier de driver. Et Nicolas s'expliquait ensuite que il filme All your movies are shot in order. Il filme tous ses films depuis le début dans l'ordre chronologique, ce qui est assez rare au cinéma, parce qu'il y a le montage normalement. Il y a du montage aussi chez Refn. Mais, et il expliquait que progressivement le film avait basculé, c'est-à-dire que plus il avançait dans le film, the more you were into the movie, the more you were attached to the love story. Plus il avançait dans le film, et plus en fait il s'apercevait que le cœur du film devait être non pas les scènes de violence, non pas l'action, mais en fait l'histoire d'amour entre Carey Mulligan et Ryan Gosling. Et c'est pour ça qu'il voit notamment la scène de l'ascenseur comme un pivot essentiel du film, puisque là, à ce moment-là, à la fois il embrasse la fille et en même temps il éclate la tête du méchant. Et il comprend à ce moment-là, et je pense que Nicolas, you understood at that moment that your movie was about that guy who is changing, who is mutating.
That it was going to be about transformation, which is a lot of what Bronson is also
Yeah,
about.
and Valhalla Rising too.
It's
Yeah.
a lot about mutation of male physicality or male alteration or the male physique. So it's very grounded in the physical part of the male transforming into, of course, some reason, a violent, but yet very erotic creature.
You've got a smile when you are saying that. Violent, but yet very erotic.
There's something very satisfying from a male point of view in terms of protecting innocence. You know, we all want to protect what we love and cherish more than anything else, and there's a perverse pleasure in that, which is better to acknowledge than to ignore it. You know, so you can kind of say that, you know, Carey Mulligan, who I didn't know, but my wife was very recommending her very strongly. She represents my wife, and this is what I would do to protect her. I am her guardian, whatever comes, and I look at her as this light and everything around me, you know, because I didn't have a girlfriend until I was 24, so I didn't know anything about women until I turned 24. So
there is movies for that.
Yes. So there is that very autobiographical nature in that I can only make films based on myself, and that's where also, of course, the artistic pleasure comes in.
Donc en gros, à partir de la scène de l'ascenseur, il s'est rendu compte que le film racontait la transformation physique de Ryan Gosling, c'est-à-dire l'idée de ce type qui se transforme pour sauver l'innocence et la fille. Et rétrospectivement, d'ailleurs, il s'est rendu compte que Bronson, comme Valhalla Rising, comme donc Drive, étaient des films sur ça, sur des gens, sur la masculinité, sur la virilité qui se transforme et qui finalement vient au service de la pureté et de l'innocence. Et c'est vrai que c'est un des thèmes qui traverse tous ces films, et il expliquait aussi que c'était quelque chose il se voyait d'une certaine manière dans le rôle du driver, et que sa femme pourrait être Carey Mulligan. D'ailleurs, c'est sa femme qui lui a conseillé de prendre un This is Liv that told you about Carey Mulligan.
Liv was right. She had seen a movie with Carey Mulligan and said she'd be great for the part, and so then I met with Carey Mulligan, and the first thing I said to her was, I thought you were a lot fatter. Which wasn't probably the smartest thing to say, but luckily she found it funny, and then, you know, I offered her the role, and then she accepted, but I would never have thought of her if it wasn't
Et donc, il y a effectivement, c'est sa femme Liv qui est dans la salle, qui lui a conseillé de prendre, qui avait vu un film avec Carey Mulligan, qui lui a conseillé de prendre Carey Mulligan. D'ailleurs, pour la petite histoire, la première fois qu'il l'a rencontré, il lui a dit: ah ben, je pensais que tu étais un peu plus grosse. C'est pas toujours le meilleur moyen pour avoir une actrice dans la poche, mais bon, visiblement, ça s'est bien passé. Et voilà. Et ce qui est important, c'est effectivement le transfert et l'espèce, ce sur quoi revenait vraiment Nicolas, c'était le fantasme, en fait. Il y a cette idée de translation. Could you say that Ryan Gosling is a fantasy of you? That it is some kind of, mirror?
It's an alter ego.
C'est un alter ego. Ryan Gosling est un alter ego.
And what a great alter ego to have.
Yeah. Is he okay with that?
Yeah. He's my Cupid.
Donc voilà. Je voulais vous laisser deux questions, s'il y a des questions dans la salle, parce que Nicolas disait qu'il avait envie de vous répondre. Donc, c'est deux petites questions, puis après on lancera le film.
Nicolas s'est nominé cette année au Festival de Cannes et j'aurais voulu savoir qu'est-ce que ça lui fait du coup d'être nominé.
What about being in Cannes with Neon Demon in 10 days, 15 days? What about?
It's fantastic.
Fantastique. Is that it? Are you anxious? Are you nervous? Are you glad? Are you how is it? That's a good question, really.
Well, the Cannes Film Festival is like it's just a lot of fun, and it's a lot of chaos, and it's a lot of anticipation, and it's a lot of opinions, but it's a lot of fun.
Sometimes good, sometimes bad. You got the both, actually.
When you are from the future, I'm beyond good or bad. Good or bad is what you had for Chinese dinner last night. I'm more interested in what affects you, So I think it's much more interesting when things create some kind of emotional either aggressiveness or love or happy, because then it's like a circular experience, because that's what I would seek myself. Does it touch me in a way that affects me in a way that it plants? That's what art does. It penetrates our minds and then continues to travel with us. So, but the best place to present that is, of course, Cannes, because Cannes is this magical landscape where culture and comments and sanity and bad taste and good taste kind of cross each other, and then in the end it's just a lot of great fun.
Donc Cannes, c'est le chaos, c'est l'excitation, c'est des bonnes choses, des mauvaises choses, des bonnes critiques, des mauvaises critiques. Et c'est un lieu extraordinaire pour montrer son film et surtout pour le processus créatif. C'est-à-dire que Nicolas s'expliquait que quand voilà, une œuvre d'art, ça part de l'artiste et ça doit rencontrer les gens. Et quelle meilleure place, quel meilleur endroit que justement le Festival de Cannes, avec des conditions de projection extraordinaires, et puis surtout une espèce de folie où les gens s'emparent des choses avec du bon goût, avec du mauvais goût, et voilà. Et je rappelle juste que Nicolas a présenté Drive en 2011 et Only God Forgive en 2014, et que ça a été à la fois le bien et le mal, puisque c'est vrai que la réception critique d'Only God Forgive a été aussi folle que celle de Drive, mais dans un autre sens, parce que les gens ont été désarçonnés par le projet d'Only God Forgives. Et que d'ailleurs, vous aviez eu en 2011 le prix de la mise en scène pour Drive. Une autre...
Yes, that's probably right.
Only the truth. Believe me. Je ne sais pas qui parle, mais
Ici.
très bien.
Déjà, je voulais dire à Nicolas que c'était un réalisateur que j'adore. Il fait partie vraiment des réalisateurs qui m'ont donné envie de faire du cinéma.
He loves you and you're one of the directors that make him want to make movies.
Oh, thank you.
Et du coup, je voulais lui poser une question sur le lien en fait qui revient dans la plupart de tous ses films. C'était le lien entre le sexe et la violence. Et je voulais savoir pour lui, comment, d'où venait cette idée de vraiment le lier le sexe à la violence et quel était ce lien, quoi.
There is something in all your movies which links violence and sex, and he wanted to know where does it come from and what it means, basically. Always, again, smiling. I don't know why.
What does it mean? Well, I think that, violence is all about our imagination. It's all about our fantasy. Sex, on the other hand, is something that hopefully everyone does, and a lot of. So it's really not that interesting to watch in fiction, because it's much more fun doing it. But violence, on the other hand, is something that we shouldn't do in real life, but it's very pleasurable to fantasize about, because we have violent impulses as human beings. We're born with it. And you can kind of see it in terms of, when we were created as a possible violent origin. But as society came, our impulses or act of violence were no longer needed to survive. So it was no longer instinctual, because society came, and with society came law and order. But the impulses that we're born with doesn't just disappear. It just has to be channeled in a different way. And that's where art can have this sense of relief, because art is, again, fantasy. But violence is much more interesting if you sexualize it, because if you're aroused by something that repulses you, it's a wonderful way it's just a really nice feeling to be in.
Bon, alors, je savais que ce serait compliqué. La violence, c'est un fantasme. C'est-à-dire que c'est quelque chose que la loi et la civilisation ne nous permettent pas d'exercer. Sauf quand on s'énerve contre une porte, ou voilà, que sais-je. Le sexe, par contre, normalement, tout le monde le pratique. Normalement, en tout cas, la plupart d'entre nous. Normalement. Yeah. Yeah, nous sommes en France, effectivement. Thank you. Et donc, effectivement, il est attiré par cette violence que normalement on ne doit pas exercer, qui est un fantasme, et que c'est toujours que l'un des devoirs de l'art, c'est justement de pouvoir transférer, faire un transfert et pouvoir libérer d'une certaine manière des pulsions à travers une recréation sur grand écran, libérer des pulsions que chacun d'entre nous a. Et le rapport au sexe, c'est juste parce que c'est plus fun en fait. Voilà. Donc un peu de sexe avec de la violence, c'est quand même beaucoup plus sympathique. On va lancer Drive, où il est question de violence et de sexe. We're going to see Drive. Just before, avant ça, je voulais rappeler que Nicolas Winding Refn est ici pour la sortie du DVD d'un film qu'il n'a pas réalisé. You didn't direct it. Ça s'appelle My Life, directed by Nicolas Winding Refn. Et c'est réalisé par Liv Corfixen. Nicolas, can you just a few words about this movie?
Well, I didn't direct this film. My wife, I'm for the first time I'm the eye candy, and my wife decided to make a documentary about our life when we were in Bangkok doing Only God Forgives. But it really became a documentary about should she divorce me or not. And I guess I don't really know the answer yet.
But she's here.
But so far she's here promoting her movie. Yeah, with her eye candy. But it's it's certainly a very unique experience for me. I find it very frightening because I'm very naked in the film. So, but again, it's not really about me. It's really all about her. So, you know, it's like if anyone is married, it's a great marriage counseling, document.
Donc en fait, la femme de Nicolas Winding Refn a pris la caméra sur le tournage de Only God Forgive, non pas pour faire un making-of du film, mais pour faire un making-of de leur mariage. Puisque, I think it's Alejandro Jodorowsky who told her what she would do or not do.
Yeah.
Puisque, en fait, Alejandro Jodorowsky, qui est un réalisateur et un ami de Nicolas, a tiré le tarot à la femme de Nicolas, qui lui a demandé est-ce que je dois rester ou pas avec Nicolas Winding Refn, est-ce que je dois divorcer ou pas de Nicolas avant de partir. Et voilà, et elle a documenté tout ça dans ce film, qui est à la fois un film sur la manière dont travaille Nicolas Winding Refn, mais aussi un portrait de Nicolas, un portrait de leur couple, et à mon avis un portrait de la création en action en fait. Voilà. Donc, ça s'appelle My Life, directed by Nicolas Winding Refn. Il y a une masterclass demain à la FNAC, à 18h, si vous voulez en savoir plus, à la FNAC Saint-Lazare, si je ne me trompe pas. Et demain à 18h, exactement, présenté par Sylvestre Picard. Et juste une toute petite annonce, The Neon Demon, qui est le film qui sera présenté à Cannes, sortira le 8 juin en France. On va en voir un teaser assez exceptionnel et assez intriguant, juste avant de lancer Drive. Et dernière petite annonce, le 7e Première Cinéma Club aura lieu le 19 mai, pendant Cannes. Ceux qui ne seront pas à Cannes pourront venir écouter Monsieur Bernard Blier parler de Buffet froid. Voilà. Bertrand Blier, d'ailleurs, plutôt que Bernard Blier. C'est plus compliqué. Le 19 mai, Buffet froid. Voilà. Thank you. Thank you very much.